Hello, if you are new, welcome. This is kind of a part 2 to my wrap skirt tutorial, so if you haven't seen that, it will be linked at the top of the description. For this tie-back top project, you'll need your fabric, potentially some lining fabric if your fabric is pretty thin, and then some fusible interfacing. I'm going to go through how to draft this pattern based on your own measurements, so you'll need to take the following measurements from your own body. The first is your desired neckline width. I recommend keeping this no more than 2 inches from your armpit. Next, you're going to take your bust measurement, which is the circumference around the highest point of your bust. Then you'll take the distance between your bust points, which is basically just the space between your nipples. And then you'll determine where you would like the hem of your shirt to sit and take that distance from the neckline as well as the circumference at that point. Then you'll need your neckline to bust measurement. And with those measurements, we can start drafting the pattern. The first step is just drawing a straight line, the total length of your top, which is from point A to point B. A to C will be your neckline to bust measurement. A to D is your neckline width divided by 2. C to E is your bust divided by 4. B to F is your hem divided by 4. B to G is 4 inches or 10 centimeters. G to H is your bust divided by 4 again. E to I is your bust divided by 16. Then you're just going to connect the rest of the dots. And you may need to adjust point D if necessary, so line DH intersects point I. Moving on, I'm refining the pattern just a little bit. The only line that actually needs a gentle curve is line DIH, and then you're just going to connect lines AB, AD, HF, and BF. These next steps will cover drafting the back of the pattern. So you're going to start by taking the trapezoid GHFB from the front of your pattern to start. Then line FJ is going to be 1/6 of your hem circumference plus 1.75 inches or 4.5 centimeters. And then draw a straight line up from point J to find point K. To refine the back of the pattern, just connect line J, F, H, and K. Once the drafting is complete, you'll be left with 2 pattern pieces, 1 front piece and 1 back piece. Align the straight edge of the front piece along the fold and cut, but remember to include extra around the edges for seam allowance. I pretty much always use 0.5 inches or 2.5 centimeters. The back piece is not cut on the fold, but you will need 2 of them, so I like to cut with the fabric folded anyway, just to make sure that the pieces are mirrors of each other. Since my fabric was fairly thin, I did cut another front piece with the exact same dimensions for my lining fabric and just held those 2 together with some basting stitches at a 0.25 inch seam allowance. Next, I'm attaching my back pieces to my front, sewing French seams as I usually do. I'm adding 1 dart on either side of my bust. You can see that there's some extra fabric right at the bust line. So I'm starting off by pinning my top to myself, making sure the neckline is sitting at my desired height, but remember you have extra height there from your seam allowance. I moved it up 0.5 inches from where I know it's going to end up sitting. And then drawing out from my bust points, I'm pinching the extra fabric and measuring how much width I need to capture in my darts. To add the darts to the top, start by finding the bust line on the front of the shirt. Do this by taking your neckline to bust measurement from earlier and adding the allotted seam allowance to that. Then find the bust points by splitting the center of the front panel with your bust point measurement. The length of the darts are going to fall halfway from the edge of the top to your bust point, and the width will be 2 times the amount you just gathered by pinching, making sure to split that width across the center of the dart. Once the dart is sewn in place, you can trim the seam allowance around the armhole so that it is again one continuous line. Next, I'm going to be finishing the edges of the armholes with bias tape, and I have a full detailed video on how to create and apply your own bias tape. It is linked above and down below in the description for you to check out if you need more information. After applying my bias tape, I'm going to finish the neckline and hem, and both are going to be double folded and top stitched in place. I'll have the heat-proof ruler I'm using linked down below, of course. And when I know I'm going to be top stitching, I like to flip my pins over to the top side of the fabric so that it's easier to remove as it's going under the machine. Moving on, I'm going to be using a strip of fusible interfacing to help stabilize the part of the back that will have the buttonholes. So this strip is 0.75 inches by 3.5 inches or 2 centimeters by 8.5 centimeters, and I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch of fabric on the raw edge that I'm going to fold over once and top stitch in place to conceal that raw edge. Then I'm sewing 4 buttonholes on each side of the back, 0.5 inches in width and evenly spaced. If you want more crisscrossing in the back, just add a few more buttonholes, and likewise if you want less crisscrossing, then reduce the number of buttonholes. Just make sure that they are in the same place on either side of the back of the shirt. The last step is going to be making the straps. I'm making mine about 1/4 of an inch thick finished width, so I'm sewing a tube wrong sides together and then flipping inside out. I recommend using a single fold, one on each end of the fabric strip before sewing into a tube to conceal the raw edges. And all that's left is to attach the straps to the corners of the neckline and top stitch in place. I also went back after trying on the shirt and secured the straps right above the top buttonhole with some top stitching, which made it easier to take on and off and also helped to make sure that the straps didn't become loose randomly and move around when I moved around. But that's all there is for this top, so let's see the finished look.
Honey, I got what you want. Give me all of your love, 'cause it's burning hot. It's what you do to me, baby.